In our last video, you learned about virtualization and how powerful virtualization can be for companies and how do they save time, money, and stress with virtualization. So virtualization technologies has been there for many, many years now. And recently, a few years ago, you will hear this cloud word or cloud term that we're using cloud or we are hybrid. When you go to a company, some people will say we are hybrid. This means that they're using on-premises technologies like virtualizations, hardware, and whatever technologies they're using, and then there's this cloud services now where people are buying, let's say for example, email systems or cloud management like Office 365 is a perfect example. You go to companies these days, a lot of people will ask you, do you know Office 365 or Google Drive and things like that. These are very simple examples of how another companies are maintaining their service, and they're just giving you access so you can use it. And then of course they give you powerful access to admins where they can then manage their users. So for our members, I'm not going to go explain every single thing because that's what you learned from this video, which is a 18 minutes video. You learned it from the lecture. And then you also did these two hands-on labs. One was the concept, and another one was a virtual machine. And this is the powerful lab right here. Now, of course, in this project, we are going to be using a premium lab because the access that comes with this is automatically given to you when we use Azure. So you don't have to create accounts or things like that, because most of the platforms, online platforms, educational platforms, they do not give subscriptions. In this lab, you have a limited subscription, which you can still use very, very effectively. So let's go ahead and first talk about our scenario. In our last video, you remember you were still using virtualization. So we give you an example of a company where they bought this very powerful system. You heard this in project 7, which I did, or previous project. So basically you heard that we still need to buy the hardware as an IT professional, even if we're using virtualization. So who's going to manage this? Of course, you and I mean the IT professionals. So if this hardware is having an issue, whether it's very powerful and effective and everything, yeah, it's cool. But at the same time, I'm still managing it, right? I still have to be worried about this hardware. So if the hardware goes down, then of course you still need to tackle it, and you have to call Cisco or other big companies and manage it with them, Dell, HP, things like that. So what if I tell you that few years ago, a lot of people started to think into this. So what if we don't just remove this part as well? I don't want to manage this hardware. And companies of course started working on it, like, you know what, let's make their life easy. Let's just remove this hardware piece from it, and let's just give these guys the same access that they're using. So if it's operating system here, why can't we give this company an access where they can get operating system from cloud? It's like, wow, that's pretty cool, right? So let's say this is a company, we're going to call this a cloud right here. This is in, let's say, somewhere in India. I'm just going to say India. So it's in India right now. And this Indian company is basically saying that, look, you know, why are you guys buying this whole big hardware? We're going to give you this access very cheap, and you guys will access your operating system securely and all that kind of stuff, you know, and they'll give you access to the operating system. You can be anywhere in the world. Even if you go to this office, you go home, you go to different countries, you just need to access my operating system through some protocols or web browser or anything that we give you. You will be able to access it. So that's very, very powerful stuff. Similarly, Microsoft provided Office 365, where it basically kind of take the whole concept out of the window where we were managing emails inside companies. So there was a need of this server. It could be a virtual server, a hardware server, where you will install a email server inside the company. So who's going to manage the hardware and email systems and everything? Because now you're dealing with that. So Microsoft totally removed that. I mean, they kind of went away from that. We still have that, but now Microsoft is offering emails and powerful access like operating systems, everything from cloud. They call it Azure, Office 365. They have everything in the cloud right now. So you can just buy a subscription from them and pay the usage amount that you do on these computers or these operating systems, and they will just bill you. Of course, for that you have to check if your bill allow you. For some companies, one of the best decisions. For some companies, it's an expensive decision. So it's not your choice. It's going to be upper management. They will make these decisions, but most likely a lot of people will go to some sort of hybrid solution where they're using internal systems and cloud because it makes sense for security reasons and for other access reasons. So this is why we are in the era of hybrid technologies, and maybe in future it may become a total 100% cloud, who knows. So this is why you need to know about cloud too, because a lot of these companies, when you go out there, they may be using Azure like this, and they may be saying that, you know what, you are the tech person, and whenever somebody gets added to our company, you also add this person to the Azure Active Directory, or maybe Office 365. You need to create an email and doing a lot of things like that. So then of course it becomes a part of your job as well. So here they may have something like Azure 1 year preferred. So remember that preferred does not mean that you really need to have this experience. And when you do these type of labs, that preferred is countered. Then that's how it works in IT. Here's a great example of how titles are changing, remote worldwide, and that was something. It was not a good concept back in the days, but since this whole pandemic, remote worldwide, full remote, all remote is becoming a very common thing even in IT jobs. And here IT support engineer, and you will see, look at this, the ability to configure users and application using Azure AD is a plus. So if you show a project, you talked about, if you talk about the project in the companies that I have done Azure lab, I have done virtual machine inside Azure, I have done some stuff in Azure. Listen, this is how people get jobs. This is a modern world. People really don't want to go back and ask you that, have you really worked with a human being to get this experience? No, they will say, have you worked on this technology? If you have worked on it in IT, people will pick you. Like I say, it's a business, and people need to understand that in a business, if I find a better person, passionate person, this person have done some homework, did some work to make my job easy, to teach you skills, then I'm going to hire you. This is how it works in IT. It's very simple. So here, look at this right here. Experience provisioning, configuring, managing virtual machines in cloud is a plus. So you're gonna keep seeing these things again and again, and that's gonna become a very normal thing for you now in job description. So this is why we are covering this even in IT support, modern IT support training in this project. That's what you're going to learn. So that's clear now. I think most of you who are new, you know now why do they put this also in the job description. So when you go back, I want you to open your lab again, because you have done this lab, so I think you should have a good knowledge right now, even before my project video. But in this video, I'm just going to explain things to you more, so then you understand where is your limitation, where some companies will limit you and not let you access things like that. So let's go ahead and launch this premium lab, and then we will talk about it. So once you click on it, this will take you to your Azure Fundamentals Labs, Azure Virtual Machines, and you have done this lab right here. So I'm not gonna do this because my projects are not about labs. So again, whatever you're doing in this project, this video project, these skills that I'm teaching is not supported by support professionals. That they support material over here. So if things are not working in this material, step by step, if that's not working, then you just basically click on this little icon right here, or the question mark, and send them images, screenshots, tell them what exactly is going on, and they will help you out. But whatever is happening in this video is not supported. It's something you have to watch fully, and then you will definitely get it. So in this lab, we have one virtual machine that comes with pre-configured subscription, which is basically limited subscription, but it should work for us. So we're going to go ahead and open a browser. So when you click on that browser, it automatically signs you in as different type of users. You may see a different user right here. I'm using as Stanley. So this is a virtual environment. Sorry, this is a cloud environment where you see it's a web-based access. So in virtualization before, you have to install and configure things on your own hardware, and then you can access it through the web internally in the company, or through some sort of software, but still you're managing the hardware, meaning you can shut down the whole hardware and you will never get to the front end of that virtualization. But here If I say I want to shut down Azure, like I just want to shut down everything, nope, you cannot do that. This is Microsoft controlling everything now. Microsoft is only giving you services now. What do you want? Do you want to use operating system? So we're going to give you that access if you pay for that specific subscription. If you want to use databases, you will pay for that specific subscription. Everything is kind of like you use it and you pay for it. There will be different type of levels in there too. We're not going to get into that because that's something you're going to learn in cloud administration. Here everything will be configured for you when you go to the company. You're not going to configure Azure like this, right? So when you log in, everything will be like you will be given your access. You will log into a link and then you will be seeing the same exact portal. So when you click here on the left side, you're going to see the same resources and things like that. Now, whenever somebody gives you access to Azure type of environment, it's not going to be an open-ended access. It's going to be very, very limited. I'll give you an example. Let's suppose I am a help desk in this company that just hired me, and then they gave me this access and I logged in, and I'm like, you know what, I'm going to log in. I'm going to check what's in Azure Active Directory. As soon as I click on it, you will see what will happen. You get access denied. You do not have access. There you go. So I am being limited as an IT support professional. I don't have access in this lab environment. But if I open my own Azure access that I have bought from Microsoft, I'm paying for that subscription. It's different than your educational subscriptions and everything. That's why I say that education providers do not provide subscription. The reason for that is that it can go anywhere. I mean, there's no limit to what you will invest into this. So nobody wants that type of access to be open-ended. It's very limited. So in the same companies, when you are working there, they're not going to give you access to everything. So if they want you to be trained on Azure Active Directory, they will train you on that. They will tell you exactly what you need to do on Azure Active Directory, how you're going to be adding a user, what is their template, what is their policies, what do you need to put out there. All of that stuff will be shown to you once. So that's a good thing. You don't need to worry about it. And then similarly, any other thing that you see over here is the same thing. If it's application services, when you click on it, if you have access, then yes, you will get access and you will see it. You see now I have access. Now I can create an application right here. So maybe in a company, they're dealing with a lot of applications and you have to do certain things. Sometimes, a lot of times, an application needs to be created, and then you will configure a few steps to make it single sign-on, or maybe you will need to add someone to the application because somebody new just joined in and you just have to add someone to the application. So you have to do these steps, but again, those steps will be shown to you in the company. So in this example, I am going to actually create a virtual machine. So again, if virtual machine access is given to you, it's going to show up. If not, it's going to say access denied. So here we are going to create a virtual machine, and this is going to be a great example for you to now understand how virtualization works in cloud. As I mentioned before, that now you're running virtualization from cloud, which Microsoft provides. So you can see I'm in the lab, but I'm still using a web browser. If you had your own access, this would have been very easy. You can just go to your web browser and type portal.azure.com and type your username and password, that if you have your own subscription. But do remember that this subscription in this lab is defined and everything is done for you. You will not get access outside of this lab to use it for your own personal labbing inside your home computers. That will not work. So you will have to use the browser inside the lab, which is right here. I'm under this plab win 10, and then we clicked on the browser and then it logged us in automatically. So now you can see inside the browser I can create a virtual machine. So let's go ahead and do that. And this could be a scenario, like I said, you have a vendor, you have whatever reason or whatever is a requirement, company will tell you that we need to create a virtual machine on Azure, and of course they will give you all of that documentation, what you can do and what you can do, because of course cost will incur. So we're going to basically pick the Azure virtual machine hosted by Azure. As you can see, it says that, so we're going to click on that. So here on the browser we have options. We are going to click on keep the current platform, and we're going to pick the subscription. So you may see a different name. If you logged into this computer with a different name, it's going to show you that. So we're going to go ahead and click on that. and we are going to create a virtual machine. We're going to call it Azure server. Okay, we're going to keep all of this the same. We don't want to change it because that's what we have access to. And here under the image, we are going to change that, and we will look for Windows related. So let's go ahead and find this one. Is fine, Windows Server 2019 Data Center. We're just going to go ahead and click on this one. So it sees it goes out there, and basically x64. This you don't want to change because that's what's given again. Price unavailable, that's what the limitation is. And here we're going to call it JSS admin. You can name it whatever you want, but do remember that you will need to keep a note of this because you need to log into these machines then. And let's create a password here. I'm going to create one password. Another reminder that these machines, when you create it, I'm going to also show you how to delete it to make it easy for Practice Lab to remove these machines, but if not, they will probably remove it after 1 hour automatically. So the rest, you just keep everything the same. In part 1, remember you learned about RDP, and you may be thinking, okay, you're creating a virtual machine inside a cloud, but how would I use RDP? I'm going to talk about that when this whole machine is ready. So we need to enable RDP because we need to access to this machine directly from anywhere around the world through using RDP, and I'll show you why that works. So we'll go to click next disks. So you can see it's automatically picking SSD for us, everything like that. We're not going to change anything. Remember that anything like this, when you want to learn cloud administration in JSS, we will have courses and labs more in detail for that sort of explanations and everything. So for now, you just kind of like go ahead with the step by step. So keep everything the same. And what you want to do is click on networking here. So you see, when you are creating a virtual machine in cloud, you also need to define which network is this machine a part of. So inside the cloud, you can create local networks. Now remember, these are local IP addresses. You learned this from part 1 course. You know what is private IP address and you know what is public IP address. So when you look at something like this, this is a private IP address, and when you create a machine, it's gonna give one of the IP addresses from this address. So we don't need to do anything again. We're just gonna go ahead and click on review and create. After this point, I just wanted to show you that when this machine is created, it's gonna have a private IP address and it's gonna have a public IP address. So we got some question here. Okay, no problem. We're just gonna click on create. So in cloud, when you create a virtual machine, server, operating system, whatever that is, Linux, you can name it, it's going to say deployment in process, and on the top also show you status. In case you close this, it's going to show right here as well. And then inside that page, you can see what is going on. Every single thing that gets created in cloud has some way to tell you what we have done. A virtual network is created, security is created, IP address is created, and network interfaces are creating, and then operating systems are already actually installed. It doesn't take that time to do the installation. Remember, you did that in virtualization. So you could avoid that by creating an image and then kind of like make things faster, but that's a lot of manual work even in virtualization. In cloud, you don't have to do that. You just pick a server, an operating system is already installed. It's like an image. You can make it bigger. You can add more size to it, like, you know, space and everything. Everything is kind of like, it's like a patching thing. You can remove one thing, you can add another thing. So that's the beauty of cloud, that you could be sitting anywhere in the world and you can create a very, very robust network and whole system, application, whatever you want. You can see this type of access was not available back in the days, and that's why people were using data center. So you go to a business, there's huge number of servers, that's electricity, that's management, that's a lot of labor. So now even at the networking side, security side, most of these things are taken over by Microsoft, and you just as a IT professionals now need to understand these systems and manage it for your clients. So that's not to say that our job is easy. It's of course more complex, but it's easier now. There's less stress, I would say, related to hardware than what we used to. Right now, anyone can be sitting anywhere in the world and can learn these skills and becoming engineers in cloud. Now, it's not that easy. Of course, you have to learn everything step by step. That's what we do in JSS. We teach you skills from kind of like tier 1 to more advanced positions. I feel like that's the best way. But the point that I'm making is that things are becoming easier in IT to get the jobs. So while that's getting created, you can go back to the home. That's fine. You can leave this. And as you can see, our deployment status is on the right side right here. It will still work in the background. Again, when you're working with cloud, there's going to be a lot of different things going on, resource groups. There's so many different things that can happen in cloud if a company is using it heavily. And every time you go into a company, if you are a help desk and you are supposed to touch cloud at any level, usually they will teach you that. But if you have some basic knowledge, like this labbing that you do, and you explain this, that I have done virtualization in cloud, I know what Azure is, I know its idea, I know how things happen, but maybe I need to learn more from your company. I am passionate about it. People will really like that, because that's where things are going now. So let's check if things are ready. Now, if you see right here, if you click on it, on this notification, you see the deployment is ready. You can go to the resource from here. So we can click on that, but we know that we have used virtual machines. We can click on virtual machines to see if our virtual machine is ready. As you can see, our Azure server is running inside the cloud right now. This operating system virtual machine is running with basically Windows 2019 installed. And what IP have assigned to that is, this is the public IP. Okay, this is the public IP, and what is the private IP? We'll find that out very quickly. So if I click on it right here, if you look right here, we have, this is kind of like what you're going to get like as a summary of this server. So a local IP address, when I showed you that in the beginning, what kind of network will be assigned? The private IP address is this, a public IP address is this. So from part 1 course, you know that if I try to RDP using this IP address and try to get into this server, it's not gonna work. Let's go ahead and give it a try. So I open a remote desktop connection from my local laptop. It's not in the PLAP Win 10. Even if you try to do that, it's not gonna work actually. So if I type that local IP address and I put 10.0.04 and click on connect, it's not gonna work. Because what? It's a private IP address. Only if we had the second virtual machine and that virtual machine also have another address 10.0.0.3 that would be locally running inside that virtual environment in Azure, maybe that would have worked, right? But if I change this and put the public IP address, which is this one, 20.0.0.18, and I click on connect, it is gonna work, right? It is asking me for a username and password that I have created. So if I type the password in the user, from my home computer to somewhere in the world, wherever this server is running in Microsoft, maybe, I don't know, some other country, or maybe in the US, Virginia or Washington, DC, I am able to connect to it. Now that is the beauty of cloud too, that in virtualization, I was worried about hardware still, even if it was very powerful and everything, but still I was managing it. The stress is mine. Here, the hardware stress is not with me anymore. This server is running from cloud, and it can be very powerful. It can be very fast. It could be replicated. It could be having backups in multiple data centers or even in geographic places. I wouldn't be worried too much. But of course, when you do something like this, everything that you do, let's say if I open this folder and then I use networking, then I use bandwidth, everything that you do has its own cost. So you got to make sure that you know this. This is why cloud can be very beneficial, but cloud can be extremely expensive for some people. And this is the reason why education providers do not just give subscription in any type of memberships. Even ours, JSS, does not give subscriptions. You have to buy your own subscriptions to learn cloud technology, and that's the reason, because it has no limitation. People can use it very effectively, and people can really don't know, and then they leave things on, and it could incur thousands of dollars on the company. So as an IT support technical person, now I know you kind of have the idea of, okay, wow, operating systems can run from the cloud. You just have to manage it in browser. You can create everything in there and then just give access. But of course, it's more than that. In companies, you don't just give IP addresses like this and people will start connecting left and right. That would be a security issue. So there's a lot of more management going on, and this is why we have all of these activity log, access control, disk, sites, monitoring, identity, and it's way beyond than just connecting to a virtual machine. Cloud is way beyond that. Matter of fact, a lot of people may not even use the virtualization inside the cloud because of the charges. Most of the time, cloud is heavily used for app services like this one, where a company will develop an application and these virtual machines could come automatically with that. But let's say there's a company that's running a full-blown CMS, content management system, or learning management system. They could create a full application inside app services, and that would have its own networking virtual environment connected to it. And some people now use like Dockers and more advanced services that are available for applications. So you may be given access to anything that you see over here. You will be told what to do, which is a great part of this. Now, I think what you should do is definitely go into this lab, because if you're a premium member, you have at least this access where you can create a virtual machines, connect to it, and get that idea, get the confidence that, okay, this is cloud. It's really not more than that. If you learn all of these things slowly by slowly, at some point you can really start working in the cloud side as well, and that's what we do in our platform. Some of our roadmaps are then directly going into deeper level of this type of trainings like Azure administration, Office 365, and things like that. Later on will come when you are transitioning from IT support role. Then of course we then go a little deeper into explaining these things, because then it makes more sense. And before that, we really don't go into anything more than just basics of what is a virtual machine, how do you create a user, things like that, and that would be normal stuff. Now in this environment, as you can see, Azure Active Directory is not available to any of us in the lab because it's no access. And if you have your own subscription or you go for trial subscription, you probably will see something like this. This is our own personal subscription. So if I click on Azure Active Directory, it says Job Skills Share right here. This is for our personal team that we have created. So you will see things like this. As you can see, I can come over here. I can click on user. And in your company, you'll probably see something like this. And if they say, we want you to create an account in Azure Active Directory, similarly like Active Directory, you're going to come over here, click on new, create a new user, invite external user. That's also some of the things that people do when they're working with different companies, that they're on Azure, or maybe you want to invite a vendor for limited days. So you could invite them to your Active Directory. It's like an email system. You can delete a user. Password reset is the same way, just like Active Directory. You do it. You can right click or click on this user and then password reset it, or you have some bulk options right here as well on top. Here I clicked on one of the member right here, and then I can reset their password. Sometimes when a person leaves a company or they're having troubleshooting issues, then you could reward their sessions. This means this will kick out their sessions everywhere they're using Azure Active Directory sign-in. Then that's going to remove their sessions, and then they will get prompted to log in again. Most of the time, sometimes when a user is added and let's say they want access to something specific like a website or application, you may have to add them to the application or to a group. So some applications are built where you add a person to a group and then they will get automatic access, or sometimes you may have to add an application and add the user to that applications. Licenses are over here. Of course, when you click on it, you can assign licenses from here as well. Depending on what this company is using, they may be using different, like Office 365 will be very different than this. This is Azure, but if company shows you what assignment or license you need to assign, you could have those options, and then you can select that option for the user, and then that will be your ticket. But again, this will be shown to you. So that's it for the cloud lab. As I mentioned before, please go back to your practice lab and then play with the virtual environment. Try to understand the networking, play around with that. So let's say, for example, if I click on here, go to all resources. When you create that lab, here you see everything that is connected to the lab will show up here. So you could learn quite a bit with this access for free, because once you have this powerful access, now you can use it for multiple reasons. Maybe VPN learning, maybe some other different type of learning, because you have a virtual machine here. You can even go inside the server and play around with that server if you want to. Other thing is that just play around with the network security, maybe play around with the virtual network right here. Click on it and find out what is cloud offering here. It's just a web page with bunch of things, subnets and things like that, firewall. You probably heard these things in your courses, right? So now you're seeing it in real world, how cloud is using all of this stuff, logging and things like that. Like I said, this type of stuff was not available to us before. We had to learn everything in networking style, like subnets. You have to go for Cisco networking, router will be required, switches will be required, and then you will need to see these things, or maybe some sort of simulation type of software. But here in cloud, everything is right in front of you, like firewall, IP addresses, virtual machines, everything is in there, and that's the future. So try to understand some of it if you can. But like I said, if you haven't landed your first job, you do not want to go too deep into this, because this is then you're going beyond your skill set. You're trying to learn something new now, and of course that will never end for you then. If you have understood the basics of cloud, basics of creation of virtual machine, you understood that basically a company will just give you a username and password to add into cloud, reset their password, and you understood now that someone will tell you what to do in their cloud environment. If you get this idea, then that's it for you. You should shut this down and focus more on the IT support courses, the remaining courses or remaining videos, and that's it. Try to get the job and get better for 6 months at least, and then you can realize that, or maybe, do a review to yourself and say, oh, you know what, this is time for me to learn more advanced stuff. So let me just go into cloud or systems administration. How do I want to do this? You can come back to us and we'll help you out. Thank you.